Welcome back to the Neighbors Podcast. We're so glad that you're here, and today is a great conversation with my friend Patric Young. Patric's life changed drastically a couple years ago when he was in a really bad car accident and had a spinal cord injury, which left him unable to walk. And since then, he's written a book, he speaks, he started an entire foundation all about how can he just recognize that God has purpose in all of this. He is literally one of the most inspiring people I have ever met. He is so authentic in the hard days and what to do on the days where you just can't see the light. How do you worship through it? And how to not live there. How to look at the good, be grateful for where you're at, recognize that God has purpose in it all. Again, I'm beside myself. I feel like he is such a gift to the world. And while we don't understand tragedy all the time and we can't fully reconcile why God lets certain things through his hands like this, we know that he's using it for good. And it is so obvious in my conversation. I say at the end that Patric's face is glowing with Jesus, and you're going to see it too. So here's my conversation with Patric. Well, Patric, welcome to the Neighbors Podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Hey, neighbor.
Hey, neighbor. There you go. You got it.
I got it.
You got it. Okay, so before we were recording, we were talking a lot about sports, and I was saying how this was kind of like my year. I was trying to get into sports. So my opening question for you is, other than basketball, because I know that's your sport of choice, what is your favorite sport to watch?
Ooh, football, easily.
Just like straight, just entertainment, football?
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be a good one. I like college football more than NFL. I don't know if I can say this now, but we're recording this one now when the NFL playoffs are going on. And there's just teams and players that you get a chance in the media. Athletes that are easy to like CJ Stroud. Oh my gosh. I've never seen an athlete, I'm sure outside of Tim, but share his faith so openly. And then even the head coach, rookie head coach, rookie quarterback, just saying, hey, this is all glory to God. This is all Jesus. Everyone counted us out. We were not supposed to be where we are right now. But it sucks because they're going against the Ravens in this next round. And I love Lamar Jackson, so we'll see what happens.
So you're a little conflicted.
I'm a little conflicted, yeah.
Is there any obscure or like more obscure sport that you enjoy watching that's like kind of random?
Well, when the major sports are done, ESPN picks up, it's called the Ocho, where they play the most random sports and competitions on television. So you got darts. No. You've got cornhole. There'll be bowling tournaments.
Wow.
They do video games tournaments, but I'll watch just like more so I can't believe this is on TV type of thing. But people are so into it.
I mean, everyone's got to have their thing.
One of my buddy, he got married in some part of Texas, and we were at this huge convention center, and it was a cornhole tournament. And people are throwing down Budweisers and Bud Lights at 8 or 9 in the morning.
Yeah, I'm sure it's just like a tailgate.
I'm like, but everyone has like their uniforms on. And I mean,
they're taking it very seriously.
Truck driver build was the body type for
That's the ideal athlete for cornhole.
Yeah,
that's so funny. I love beach volleyball. Watching beach volleyball. One time we were watching this beach volleyball tournament, and during a timeout, they had like hula dancers, and like they had a DJ going, and it was just a party between sets. And
from Nebraska volleyball is really good, so it's easy to connect the dots there.
For sure. Okay, so shifting gears, the opening line of your bio is, I had to sit to learn to walk again. Mm-hmm. And that is such a powerful statement. So tell us about what happened to you and a little bit of your story.
Yeah, I think what came with the title was understanding that I was living a life, and as we all do sometimes, of relentless busyness or hurriedness or going and doing. And maybe we think we're doing God's will, but are we actually slowing ourselves down to hear what his will is?
Yeah, wow.
Just because we think it doesn't mean that that's what it is. And it was just tough because I think there were times in my life where I think God had nudged me multiple times of like, this is not the path I want you to be on. I didn't like, you're doing that thing. Sure, it might be looking good on the outside, but I didn't bless you to do that.
Oh, wow.
I didn't bless you to open up that business. I didn't bless you to do this or that. Like, you've never asked me about it. And whether it was sin, whether it's just doing things without really not going to live forever. Mm-hmm. We all know that we have a physical weakness, but going through a life-changing accident showed me how mentally, emotionally, spiritually weak I am. Mm. And honestly, that's not a bad thing, because when we think that we're greater than we are is when we become selfish, prideful. Mm. Oh man, God hates pride. Absolutely hates pride. So I went from a position of being independent and thinking I had things under control and this is the way my life was going to go to, I don't really know. And putting me in a position of, God, I'm putting your promises to the test. I'm putting who you said to the test. I'm putting who you say that I am to the test. And not testing in a bad way, but God, as we know, he cannot lie. He cannot be polar opposite of his character. So if he said that he has a plan, a hope, a future, that we're going to have troubles, but fear not, I'm going to be with you. Okay, let's walk in that. And it's a daily process, because of course the enemy is going to continue to try to turn what happened into me and make me feel like a victim, to make me feel like this is never going to end, or that there's no hope, that I'm just going to be stuck. And God's like, you have no idea not what I'm doing in your life, but in your family's life and those around you. I am doing a great work. And like you said, like you prayed before we started this, if it impacts one person, then it's worth it. If one soul is, through my story, through my pain and striving to overcome and turning this into something powerful, then, I mean, it says tens of thousands of angels rejoice when one sinner turns to Jesus. So is that not something to be super excited about?
Yes.
Right?
For sure.
It's not easy. It is not easy, but it takes being plugged in.
Yeah.
Whether that's worshiping, whether it's praying, whatever can just help you. It's not just about feelings. Feelings are, we're very emotional people at times. Feelings are great, but also just the posture of, Lord, I'm just putting it in your hands today. Just help me to have discernment with what I say, with what I do, to be vulnerable when I am struggling, because the answer is not always acting as though you have everything together. That is not, that is not helpful. So it's been a journey that I've been on, and I'm not at the point where I would say this is the best thing that's ever happened to me.
Sure.
But the things that have come from it, that have grown from me trusting God, have been amazing.
Well, I think a lot of times we hear stories of, here's what my life was like, this horrible thing happened to me, and now, I'm so grateful this happened. This is the best thing that ever happened to me, and just hoorah, God. And one thing I loved when I was asking you, would you do this interview? You said, like, I'm very much in the middle of this. Like, I'm very much in the middle of my healing. And I think it's so important for people to hear that they can still worship in the middle. So before we get too far into all the things that you've learned, can you catch people up if they aren't familiar with your story of what happened to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So where to start? 2020, the end of that year, I went, I played professional basketball, had some knee injuries that sidelined me, and wasn't sure if I wanted to go back to play, but I had an opportunity to go out to Israel, and I took it. Didn't work out. Came back to America in 2021 and was like, I'm not sure if I still want to do basketball. Or not necessarily, not like my mind was willing, just the body couldn't follow. I would say, I really want to go out there and perform and help teams, but because of my injuries, and I was like, I don't want to keep living in that mental prison constantly. So decided to just trust God and say, like, all right, Lord, I'm okay with walking away from the game. It's done more than enough for me. What's next? And I really got plugged into church. Shout out to Victor Meza.
What a guy.
Yeah, him and my guy Jordan Poole. We started a little men's group that year,
cool.
where I really grew and we were committed and just felt like I had community, and brothers. Like when I'm coming into the building, like we light up when we see each other because we were spending quality time. In that same year, I got my first like real job, which is working with the SEC network. And then I got another job working for one of Tebow's for-profit companies, and also reconnected with my wife, which was like crazy because a lot of great things happening that year. And life was just, I look back at 2021 and I'm like, this was a fantastic year. Wow. And as we were preparing for our wedding, I was up in Nebraska with her and her family. They live in Nebraska. They're from Nebraska, but she went to college at the University of Florida because when she was a teenager, they moved down to Florida, her and her family. So I wanted to spend time with them because once we were going to get married, we were going to be down here in Jacksonville for good. And I would not trade the time that I spent up there for a second. It was fantastic. So one day I did get a little bored up there because it is the middle of nowhere in Nebraska.
What did you do in Nebraska?
I golfed a lot.
Looked at beautiful scenery.
I was working remotely, so everyone was gone out of the house until work was over, and it was just me and the dog. It's just me and the dog hanging out. And it was too cold to play golf at certain points. So a guy from church up there invited me to come and say, hey, man, if you got free time, you can come work and do a side gig with this irrigation company. And I enjoyed it so much because it felt good getting your hands dirty. These they're like huge sprinklers that water the crops so these farmers can make money, and then they continue just sitting there at home. So it was going well. I really enjoyed it, getting your hands dirty, using power drills, putting stuff together, tearing it apart, playing with the toys. Then you come back home and you would feel so accomplished and can't wait to do it the next day. And June 29th, we were leaving from one site to another where we had just put together the second to last piece of one of these huge pivots. And on this dirt road, I just lost track of where I was and ended up losing control of the vehicle and the truck. And I was fearful because it's a highway, but not like, don't think of Jackson when we say highway or an interstate. It was in the middle of nowhere, but on this road, there's people transporting all types of heavy machinery or just in general. It's not busy, but you just don't know. And I couldn't see left or right if somebody was oncoming or not. So my first inkling was, get out of the way. I need to get out of the way because it would blindside somebody if my car just popped out of nowhere. Fortunately, no one else was involved in an accident. The truck went completely parallel to the road, and the momentum kept taking it till it went off the side and rolled over once. And when it landed on that impact, I just felt a pop into my back, and immediately I couldn't move my legs. I was just like, it felt surreal. I couldn't believe that it was really reality. And I'm so grateful that my phone was right there. I was able to grab my phone, call my mom, call my partner that I was working with, Life 360. I know a lot of kids. A lot of kids don't like Life 360, but it was awesome.
Wow!
It alerted my family that I had been in an accident, and then before you know it, I was life flighted to South Dakota, where I had to have an 8-hour surgery on my back.
Wow! And then what? And then you woke up from surgery, and what happened?
I woke up from surgery. I can barely remember that because I think of the drugs were still had me pretty loopy. But I know Whitney was there, my mom, my sister were there. It was nice to see familiar faces. And I just I'll take it a step back. When I was on the helicopter, and I say this because it's so true, and no one can discount this experience because I don't have the words to describe it. I don't have a degree to describe this experience, but the peace of God was over me.
Wow.
When I was in that helicopter. I had no new revelations. Nothing changed. Everyone's freaking out. Don't know what life is going to look like after, but I just had this feeling that God was saying everything's going to be okay.
Wow.
It's going to be okay. Trust. It's nothing about what's next. I know, right? I can't explain. I just thought it brought my mind straight to Philippians, where it says that, we bring our requests to him and with prayer and supplication, and we receive peace without having the knowledge of what's next, because God is in control pretty much. And I was just like, I felt that. That's the first time I felt anything like that in my life.
Wow, that's incredible. So then what did the next year or so look like?
Yeah, so after I was in South Dakota for a while, for about 2 weeks in Sioux Falls, then ended up getting transferred to a specific spinal cord injury hospital, which was in Denver, Colorado. It was called Craig Hospital. I was there for 5 weeks. It was great. They teach you how to adjust and prepare for life if your circumstances don't change. So you can be independent. You can have a life. You can still really do cool things. And I wanted that. I wanted to not let this define me. I wanted to find the things that still, and my mom said this because, when the accident happened, people were freaking out and wondering why she wasn't freaking out herself. And she's like, I've talked with him. I've seen him. Every part of Patric that made him Patric is still there. Maybe he can't stand, maybe he can't run and jump like he used to, but every part of him that makes him him is still there.
Yep.
And I mean, in my time in going, processing all of this, therapy was fantastic. Because I think when tragedy or life-changing things happens, families can come closer together, or somehow, sadly, they can not do the polar opposite. And I think my family got closer together for sure, without a doubt. Just seeing the fragility of life in the youngest of our tribe, and just everyone. No one knew the answer. We were just available. They were just having people available in my darkest time. I didn't always know what to say or what to think or what to ask for. And there's times where I wanted to give up and ask God why, but I just kept going. We just kept going and trusting that he was in control. I remember there was one time Whitney and I were playing this game, card game I actually gave to Joby, and his daughter loves it. But it's a question game. It's called the And Game. And we were playing a version of it's called the Healing version. And Whitney pulls up a card and it says, what would you title, what title would you give this season of your life? And I thought about it and I said, do you believe? Do you believe God is who he says he is? Do you believe in what he says about us? And if that's the case, what are we worried about? What are we worried about? And again, that doesn't mean things were easy, but we were able to continue to fall back and rely on that. Got back to Jacksonville around August of 22. And that was crazy in and of itself, because typically when you're renting a place, they want you to come look at it first, a lot of places. Yeah. And we weren't able to because we were going straight from Nebraska to Jacksonville. And I just found a place that looked like it was going to work, and it worked.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. Tell me about it. Yeah, so we lived there, and Whitney had to drive me everywhere at first, and then I finally got the ability to drive again. Okay. And it was a lot. Yeah. I ended up writing a book about the whole experience. That's how crazy it was. Yeah. I mean, goodness.
Okay, so how has your faith changed from before your accident to after your accident?
Gosh, I would have to say it's so much easier when things are easy to take for granted the greatness of the gift of what Jesus has given us.
Wow.
I think so. I think it's easy to become, especially when you grow up in it, to become desensitized to maybe presume upon grace, to think, oh, God will forgive it. I can. Understand that how serious and what was sacrificed for us. And it just put me in a position where I wouldn't say fraud, I wouldn't say lukewarm, just not fully invested and committed in the way that Jesus is called. It's like you think the gift that was given, the ultimate sacrifice of someone giving their life for you, would you respond with lukewarmness? Would you respond with a non-grateful daily heart. And it just made me realize that I truly do understand the daily bread aspect, that I need him daily, that especially when I was transforming into a new father and new husband, that it's hard. It's hard to not think about yourself and not try to put yourself first when you have a family, when you have been given a responsibility to care for them and to lead them and to love them. Like men, any man listening that wants to get married or is married, you got to fight that pride every day. The pride to be right, the pride to be understood, to prove yourself. No, bring into the house peace and love and tenderness. And it's caused me to realize there's so many areas that I need to continue to grow in. That's for sure. Same, right?
Same, yeah. So how do you worship in the middle of it? Like what do you continue to come back to on the days that are really hard?
I think what is so important when you have days where that are really hard. First off, isolation is not the way to go.
Yeah.
It's so hard when you're isolated for people that love you to, first off, to even see you. The importance of that, the more time you spend with somebody, the easier it is to identify when something's wrong. The easier it is to say like, it's just something just didn't seem right about Patrick today, or like having my family around, they could see you just seem kind of sad today. You know? And honestly, I'd be able to answer that. Yeah, I am a little sad today. And I'm able to check in, and this is what I'm feeling, and this is hard. And then with the rebuttal from my family and my sister specifically saying like, you don't need to act like Superman. You don't need to act as though you have everything. And vulnerable with yourself and with others. And then more importantly, being honest, vulnerable, and truthful with God. What helped me when I was recently in the hospital this year, or last year actually, was I had this thing called the feelings wheel, where it's very simple. It has three different layers of emotions. The first inner layer are basic emotions that you would say happy, sad, mad, etc. Then it goes to a next layer that's a little more detailed. You got two choices. Then it goes to another layer after that. And literally checking in with myself and looking at this wheel and say, how am I feeling today? Feeling a little defeated. Okay. And then being able to share that with somebody. And I can use those words verbally when I'm praying, or even if I didn't have the words to pray, I would put on worship music and close my eyes and just praise. And it's a song that's out there. It says it might not move the mountains, but it still makes things better. We might not have the answer, but it still makes things better because it's putting us back in this humble position or this posture of things are so much bigger than myself. And like, I don't know, it's so hard to explain but the answer of doing nothing and not seeking and not speaking and not feeling what you're feeling, I know that's not the answer. Being able to have community and people that you can share these things with and that can love on you and aren't just trying to fix it, because sometimes we don't know what to say. And so, and if we don't know what to say, don't just blurt out Christianese. Don't just say some Christianese because sometimes that will make things worse.
I love that you're talking about having people around you, and what you said about people have to know you to then know when you're having an off day. I mean, literally yesterday I was walking around, and our family, we've been in and out of sickness, just run down. We're just in a tired season. And a woman I do ministry alongside, she just stopped me. She said, "Allie, you just look like you've had a lot on your mind this week." And I was like, you know what? I have. Like, can you talk to me about it, please? And I was just so reminded of what a blessing it is to have people who know you at your best, can recognize you at your not best, and step in and say, I know you're not feeling your best right now, and I'm here if you just need to talk, if you want me to pray for you, whatever you need. So that importance of community, it sounds like you've seen that play out in a huge way.
Yeah, and it's so important because especially if you're married, or in a relation, or just around people that you have to see consistently, and like work, for instance, you can't avoid. I guess you can try to avoid,
but not really.
Certain situations you can avoid people. You can not text back, and you can kind of just slowly take these actions of to walk into isolation. But when you're in spaces where you can't run away, there's tension being built if those things aren't being addressed, and it's not always negative. It could be positive things as well, because affirmations of someone doing good, as well as accountability when someone is doing less than what they say they want to be or who they want to be, or things just don't align, like, are priceless.
No, yeah,
absolutely priceless.
Okay, so you've mentioned, you don't want to just play the victim every day. That's not healthy, but it's also important to feel what you're feeling. So how do you find the balance? Like, I imagine the person listening who has gone through something incredibly painful, incredibly hard, and they don't know how to find that balance between accepting that this is hard and I can admit I'm not okay, while also not accepting that as their full identity every single day. Can you help? Like, where is the balance in that?
Yeah, it's so interesting you bring it up, because I remember, I think it was during a John series at church, where Joby talked about the man that had been near the water of Bethesda, that I always got offended when Jesus was like, "Do you want to walk?" Is that what you want? Of course, this man had been, he wants to walk, but was he identifying himself with his circumstances, that was the only way? Like, who am I going to be if I can walk? I'm afraid of that. And I just don't want to give that date or what happened power over me to think that that I'm putting limits on myself.
Yeah.
There are days where for sure I feel weak or sad that I can't do certain things, but instead of focusing on, and that's what Satan wants us to do. We go back to Adam and Eve. He wanted Eve to focus on lack versus the abundance.
Yeah.
I'm giving you all of this, but God's not giving you that. So is he really giving you everything? Yeah. And that's often what we do sometimes as a victim. We continue to just focus on what we don't have, and it creates bitterness and resentment. I wish we could go back and change the past. I do. Sometimes I wish we could go back and change, like, learn the lesson and have it in our minds, but go back and change it so we didn't have to go through the hard thing. But another thing with that, and it's very hard. It's very hard. It takes community. It takes the Holy Spirit. It takes therapy. But Ed Milet's one of my, I love one. Well, he started doing these podcasts where it's just him talking versus interviewing a guest. He said, "You are the most qualified to help the God intended for us to have to experience when he made creation, but because of sin, now that he can use the things that we've gone through once we come to him to help others come to him as well." So that's the positive spin on it. But there's a lot of work, obviously, you have to do to get to that point where you're like, all right, I used to be addicted to X, Y, and Z. I'm not proud of it, of course, but I've overcome that. How can I go and help somebody else that may be struggling with those same things and come to faith?
Sure. So you mentioned that you wrote a book. What is your book about?
It's named Sit to Rise, Turning Your Darkest Moments into Your Brightest Victories.
Wow. And you do a lot of speaking too, I'm sure, which is in line with the same content. So can you just give us the high level of what you like to speak to people about?
It seems as though the theme from what I've seen and had is people need to learn to give themselves grace. I think a lot of people we're our own worst enemies and our biggest cheerleaders. Like, who do we hear from the most every day? Ourselves. What are we saying to ourselves because of a circumstance or a result? And that goes in sales, that goes into whatever you might think about it, because if you're not getting a result that you think you deserve, you start looking at yourself and say, "Oh man, I'm an idiot. Oh, I'm no good at this, and I'm no good at that," or just making it so the result defines you versus defining yourself. Define yourself, find truth in who you are, that baseline, that no matter what happens, this is who I am. And as Christians, we have the ability to say, go on a huge list of who God says that we are. And if we lose focus on that, we allow the world or circumstances to make us think that we're less than what God calls us to be. And of course, in every setting and situation, I can't always talk so much about my faith, but I can talk about resilience. I can talk about mindset, positive affirmations, of like reminding yourself of who you are, that you can't control. You can control what you can control, or manage what you can manage, and that you are not your result. The result just is a part of the work or preparation you put into. And then you can ask yourself, did I give it everything I wanted to give? Like if I get a B on a test, and any students that might hear this, you can ask yourself, do you want to be a B student? Did you work as hard as you possibly could to overcome? And if not, it's okay if that's where you want to be. But if you want to be greater, then you're going to have to put a little bit more work in. Yeah. If you don't want that, that's fine.
Yeah.
Let me get that beat before you quit.
Oh, you're good. So what do you feel like was the hardest thing about writing a book?
Getting started.
Okay. Like, did you ever think you would write a book?
Yeah, it's fun. It's funny that you bring that up. I turn this off. Yeah, there we go. So I always envisioned that one day I'd write a book, I'd speak, I'd be doing something.
You thought like pre-accident.
But it wasn't like an immediate, it wasn't a priority.
It was just somewhere in the back of your mind you felt like you might do that.
Just when people are like, oh, one day I'm gonna learn how to play that instrument. One day I'm gonna do that. It was kind of one of those things. And then going through having this accident and my life being changed is like, no, we have something.
It was clear.
It's clear. Getting started was a little bit difficult because I didn't know what direction I want to go into, but I had a team to help me. And what we did, which was brilliant, for those that want to ever write a book, you can do this yourself. Write down, interview yourself or have somebody interview you and have the words transcribed. So you can go back and refer to what you said, and it helped defeat writer's block.
Wow.
I did a series of 5 different interviews where everything that we said was transcribed, and also had help from the company he would make a suggestion, hey, this would be really good to go in chapter 5. This would be really good to go into that chapter.
Someone who knows how to do it, they can organize it a little bit better. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I can't wait to read it. You also started a foundation, right? You've been busy the past couple of years, Patric. Yeah. This happened to you, and it's like you just took it by the horns, and you said, all right, well, the enemy's not going to win this. I'm writing a book. I'm speaking. I'm starting a foundation.
Well, yeah, I wanted back into that box of things that I said one day I want to do. A foundation was one of them as well, but no plans on when that would start or whatever it may be. And me going through the healthcare system with having a spinal cord injury just helped me to experience and see things and see this gap that, many people that I met through it were just having a normal day like I was and got into an accident. And it could happen to anybody. And if you're uninsured or don't have insurance, it costs about, on average, I think $1.3 million the first year after a spinal cord injury.
Wow.
That's your hospital stay, that's surgery, that's the rehab, that's the equipment. So it really does add up. So I just saw that there's gap, because even after you go through all those things, there's still a gap in coming back to wholeness of life. Like, for example, say you have an accident like me and you want to learn how to drive again, and you have the ability, but maybe you don't have the $500 to pay for the driving evaluation. Maybe you do. You pay the $500 and they say, okay, you need to get hand controls. And that's $3,000 to $6,000. Oh, guess I still can't drive. Maybe you need a lift for your wheelchair. That's $10,000 right there.
Yeah,
I know, right? It just adds up. And I wish we could help everybody. I really do. But more than anything, hopefully bringing light to the situation, because I also want people just to be grateful that you are able-bodied, that you can run, that you can do whatever God has created, to move your body the way God created you to, because there's a lot of people that would trade in a heartbeat to get back what they had lost. So that's what motivates me. And then, I mean, so crazy. Last year, or 2 years ago, when we did the first tournament, we put it together in 6 weeks.
What kind of tournament is it?
I never want to do that again. That was awful. I was on the phone.
Sounds terrible.
I was on the phone from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. every day, just trying to get
why
this
did I
and
do
that.
this?
Yeah, I'm never doing that again.
Wait, what kind of tournament? What sport are we talking?
Golf tournament.
Golf. Okay.
Yeah, golf tournament. Had it at the yards.
Oh, nice.
And then this past year we had it at Queens Harbor.
Okay.
First year we raised around $70,000. This year we raised around 80. So really looking forward to. I know it's unbelievable.
Amazing.
It's unbelievable. Just that's nothing but God. I can't explain. Because most, first year you're not looking at making that much money. So it just gives me like stuff like that gives me the motivation and to keep going because we can get so lost, I think, in the grandeur things, the big things, and not see that God's doing small things that are very impactful just for him to remind us that I'm here. I'm guiding this thing that you're doing. Okay,
so final thing for the person that is just deep in the valley, like they just can't see the light. They're trying to listen to worship songs. They're trying to come to church, and they just feel defeated and overwhelmed. What could you just offer them?
You have to cry out to God. It says that our cries are heard. It says it in Psalms 41-3 that he turns his ear to us and that he will put our feet on the rock and take us out of the slimy mud. And I'm just like, gosh, it's just such an amazing promise because in my darkest point, I mean, I didn't have an answer. I was fearful. I was sad. I literally was just honest and crying out to him. And not only did that help, but being honest with people around me to cry with me, to love on me, to be there, helped me. So like isolation is where Satan wants you. He wants you to go stay in your mind. Don't talk to anybody. Don't be real about your emotions. Focus only on the negative. Focus only on how the worst possible scenario versus gratitude. Like, let me focus on what God has already done in my life and is continuing to do in my life. And again, I don't want it to sound like Christian. I experienced this, so I know it works. I know that if you're literally calling out and crying out, I didn't get an immediate answer. Again, it wasn't for an answer, but for peace, for reassurance, for him to say, I know this hurts. I know this is tough, but I'm with you was everything.
I love that. Okay, so I ask everybody this in closing. What is something you are loving to do for fun? So in this new version of you.
I'm mad you asked that.
What? Why?
I'm mad because I made a New Year's, I won't call it a resolution, but I made it, it's like a habit goal.
Okay.
A daily habit goal.
Okay.
And I wanted to add one thing in there that's fun. And I haven't done that. I have not done that.
Well, there's still time.
I don't know. Like, I don't know. I really just enjoy speaking. I enjoy getting outside. Enjoy playing with my dogs.
What food have you most recently enjoyed the most?
I went to V Pizza.
V's Pizza's great.
V Pizza, and had the chicken wing pizza, which was fantastic.
Oh, unbelievable.
I actually had
chicken wings on pizza. I mean,
actually,
it's brilliant.
I had some leftovers this morning. Actually,
there you go. Breakfast of champions.
Pretty great. Yeah.
Well, Patric, thank you so much. You are inspiring. I'm sure you hear it all the time, but your authenticity and your face just glows with the Lord. And despite everything you've been through, you're just still such a giant for the kingdom, both physically. I'm still looking up to you here. But just, God is just using you in massive ways, and I'm inspired by you. I know other people will be too. So thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, like my last thing, just thinking about sit to rise, I'm sitting down in this chair, and I'm 6'9", 250 pounds or whatever, and I just feel like I am standing taller than I ever did when I was actually on my feet, mentally, emotionally, and there's still so much room to grow. But it's the person that I've become and the awareness that I have of not only myself, but of others has drastically changed through all of this, and I wouldn't replace it for anything.
Wow. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Neighbors is produced by Logger Creative and Taylor Minning. Music by Austin and Lindsay Adamak, artwork by Wesley Parsons, and motion graphics by Robbie Burns.